blistering starts to a tennis match.
Shakespeare got it wrong. It wasn't King Lear. It's King Lear.
LeBron James with no regard for human.
Yuvraj Singh finishes things off on style.
This is a News Laundry podcast, and you're listening to NL Playoffs.
Hello and welcome to NL Playoffs. My name is Gautam. I have with me my co-host Aniket. Aniket, say hi.
Hello world.
This is another very special episode that we are going to post. We are recording this on the 25th of March 2022. It's about 8:40 a.m. India time. Aniket, we are coming up on the 18-year anniversary since India's tour to Pakistan in 2004. It was India's very first tour after 15 years. First full tour, I must say. Right now, as we speak, Australia is in Pakistan after so many years. I mean, international cricket, like a full-blown series is going on in Pakistan right now. After a long time, which is great to see. It's always great to see cricket back in Pakistan. So we thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to post an interview that we did with the great Sharda Ogra. I think this was maybe a month and a half ago, right, Aniket? So we thought this would be a really good opportunity to post that interview where she talks about not just her tour to Pakistan from like a sports coverage point of view, but also her many personal experiences.
Right, it's a fascinating conversation to have with someone who is on the ground, watched the sport, experienced the culture, as she mentioned, about interacting with folks there, the food, and a lot of what we now call behind the scenes. So it is a fascinating conversation, and I'm glad we are putting this out now.
Yeah, the tour itself was very exciting because we had, from a sporting point of view, we had Sehwag's triple century. Rahul Dravid was really good. Rahul Dravid actually called Sachin back, that famous declaration when Sachin was stranded at 194. So from a sporting point of view, on the field, it was jam-packed. Even the ODI series was
There was a spectacular Mohammad Kaif catch too, to add to that. So
yeah, exactly. So we go through all of that stuff, and as Aniket said, Sharda shared some wonderful anecdotes about her just going off to different places in Pakistan and meeting with old relatives that her family knew from back in the day, who just remained back in Pakistan, and all of that, all of those experiences with their local culture and food and how they spoke and how they treated all of the Indian journalists and so on. So it was quite a fascinating interview. And always, Aniket, whenever we speak to Sharda, she just oozes with anecdotes and knowledge, right?
absolutely, and I would say we should stop now and let the audience just get into this because it's interesting.
For sure, yeah. So without any further ado, here is our conversation about India's tour to Pakistan in 2004 with Sharda Ogra. I hope you guys enjoy it.
That's it. It's all over. Man Khan did his best. Balaji finishes it off for India, and the Indians are absolutely ecstatic, and as they should be. Just how important, Ian Chappell, is this win to India?
It's an absolute pleasure again to have Sharda Ogra on our small and fledgling podcast. Sharda, welcome to our show again.
Hi Gautam, hi Aniket. Thank you so much. What fun to be talking about this. Absolutely my most favorite tour of all.
Yeah, so let's start there, Sharda. What makes this your most favorite tour of all?
Many reasons, other than sort of say primarily also not so much the fact that India won, but India won became like the additional sort of joy that came in it. I think just traveling to Pakistan, to a place which is just drilled into your head that it's there. They were the great opposition. So this is 2003, 2004. We haven't yet begun changing the dial a little bit about how competitive we were against the Pakistanis. Because my first match that I remember watching on television was a test match of the 1979 series between India and Pakistan being played in Pakistan. It was Bishan Singh Bedi's last match. And Bishan Singh and Kapil Dev's first series. So I remember that was the first cricketers that I saw playing against India actively on TV was Imran, Sarfaraz, Asif Iqbal, all these, Zahir Abbas. So it was just like, that was the whole sort of pull over there. And they were extremely talented, charismatic, like Indians, but not Indians, that whole type of things. Fast bowlers, bowlers in abundance. So all those things came into play. Plus, my father had very, very good friends in Pakistan. My father's family grew up in Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow, and various other cities. His father was a member of the civil service at the time, the administrative service. He had a friend who was also a member of the administrative service. My father and his siblings are 7. My grandfather's friend, his siblings were 9. And so all the uncles and aunts, knew all this Pakistani family that became Pakistani. They left for Pakistan. All the children left. The father and the mother stayed behind in India, because he said, I'm not leaving, nonsense and everything. And the gentleman was responsible for rewriting the laws and putting into place the structures that brought an end to the land ownership and the zamindari system in Uttar Pradesh just after the World Cup, which is described quite in detail in Vikram Seth's Suitable Boy, right? It's the same milieu.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to meet all those people also, the families that were there. So it was all this, plus it was a cricket, plus it was just being in another place. And it was just incredible. And we went to, and because we were going on a cricket visa, there was this thing called a cricket visa, it comes up from time to time. Aap cricket visa pe ja rahe hain. And that's it, you get treated so well everywhere, And it was a fabulous tour. India Today, the publication I worked for, they sent me for the one-day series, then we won it. And then they brought me back when Multan was going on. And then they said, why have you come back? I said, you are the people who got me back. India Today was always doing this, assuming that I was spending wild, lavishly living in some 7-star hotel, which was not. Bless them. They sent me to a lot of places. But they used to do this, like pull you back. Like the give you, but in small doses. like Omicron, as was joked about 2 seconds ago. Yeah.
So did you go back to the test series or no?
Yes, I did. I went back to Lahore and I went back to Pindi. So but I missed Sehwag's innings, right? Because immediately Sehwag's innings then became Tendulkar declaration, became this, became that. Oh God, we could win and whatever. And go, and you went back again.
Oh man.
Oh wow, that's a wonderful story. Actually, so there is so much to connect over here. It is the cricket. It is personal, and also correct me if I'm wrong. This was also used by the two governments as to enhance the peace talks, right? So this was after Kargil. 99-2000. I think this was the first time these two teams are actually playing together. So there was a lot on the line with this series, and also the emotions were high on both sides, given the exact same reason. So there had a lot going on during this particular series, at least.
Yeah, I mean, emotions being high, they tend to be high usually for non-cricket fans. Cricket fans are just, oh, it's an India-Pakistan series, fabulous, it's actually happening, and you take the context on later. You take the before and the after, and you take all that later and you bring it into your story. As a journalist, you bring it into the story, of course, but as just a fan, you're just happy that they're playing,
For sure.
And, that's what it was. So the political thing, of course, India Today wanted me to do stories about the whole political angle also, as in what is it like on the ground, and I went to university and spoke to kids and whatever and all that. But the cricket was always going to be fun. From the first ODI, because it was so spectacular. The venue was like this theatrical sort of, I think I got the wrong access to the National Stadium in Karachi. I came from some entrance from somewhere else on the other side, and the helicopters, and it was too exciting. It was just too exciting. And then you had that catch that KF took.
Is there a collision? Has he caught it? Somebody has. Mohammed Kaif has caught as good a catch as you will see in the outfield for as long as you ever watch cricket.
And Shoaib was going mad, and we were going to lose the match, and it was just, and all of us by that time, we had been in Pakistan for at least 3 days. So we had eaten ourselves absolutely sick of the food. People who are meat eaters, they just loved it. And so we all were asking each other, do you have Lomotil? Do you have whatever, all kinds of things. And this match was going on in the middle of it. It was just too much. It was just
That's
too much.
wonderful. So tell us about the build up as to when you went to Pakistan and all of that, because I was reading this excerpt from Rahul Bhattacharya's book, Pandits from Pakistan, when he spoke about the sheer logistics that were involved in taking the Indian team, the whole contingent from Delhi to Lahore. And he talks about how there were plans and how there were decoy plans. Initially, they were supposed to fly out at X time, but the plane actually was scheduled for X plus 30 minutes to keep any time bombs or anything like that away. In Pakistan, apparently, once they landed, there was players came out of the arrivals terminal and not the departures terminal. That was another decoy. So tell us about how that whole thing was. I'm assuming you went to Pakistan a little bit before the Indian team flew in. I'm not so sure, but tell us about the whole build up to it.
Around the same time. Okay. And the whole thing was going to be about security. Everything was about security of the team, security of the team, security. There was some rumbling before the tour that the players were wondering whether they should go or not. There's a little bit of unsettled sort of, a thought about it. Are we okay to go? Should we go? Should we not go? That kind of thing. But we must always also remember that at that time, the two boards were friends. There was Dalmia on this side. I forgot who the president was on the Pakistani side. They were friends and they wanted this to happen. They wanted the cricket to happen. For whatever it was, broadcast rights, media rights, money, this way, that way, but they wanted the game to happen. So the moment they got the go-ahead from the government, it was always going to be there. So security was this big thing. And our security was immaterial. Nobody cared about our own security. Reporter log hai, do what you want. It was the team security that was there. So they had all these outriders and they had, I think, decoy buses, right? So they had one bus that left thinking went this way, one bus. So all this drama was also going on. But, getting what happened with the players, I know, is that they started getting fed up of the security. And they kept telling this, and they had to tell everyone wherever they had to go. They stepped out, they had to give every instruction that we are going to X place. We are going to buy toothpaste or whatever. I mean, we were the ones who used to go to buy toothpaste. But whatever they wanted to do, they had to tell the person and they had to go. And then they started, after some time, they got so relaxed and they started slipping past security and going in the night to some place to eat. And,
is that true?
We saw Ganguly at some crazy time of the night in, I don't know whether it was in Peshawar or it was in Lahore. They came out in the night to eat because there's this like a food street, like Khao Gali of Lahore. It's called, I think, Gawal Mandi, if I'm not wrong. All of us used to go and all journalists will tell, great food. We went yesterday, whatever. And it was like, why can't we go? We are in this stupid 5-star hotel stuck with security and everything. So it was all that was also going on. And they would actually do that. And so you remember like guys like Yuvraj and all that on the team. So they're Punjabi. They're Punjabis and there is Punjabiness around them in Lahore all the time, so it's like, how can we not go out and enjoy ourselves? So it was a lot of that. The security that was stifling, and there was stories about how much money had been spent on the security, and they had these guards called, what were they called? Very dashing, dressed in those sort of sand, I think Rangers or something like that they used to be. And they should wear black. There was another bunch of people that used to wear black clothes and carry machine guns. So a lot of guns and uniforms and guys and whatever. But eventually it all came down to the cricket and what fun that was. And Rahul's book is superb because he'll tell you all kinds of. So I had a photographer who came with me from India today. He went off to some dargah in the middle of the sea. I was saying, what are you doing over there? He said, no, I've gone to this dargah because he's sort of a Sufi and whatever. I think it was Data Ganjbaksh Dargah in Lahore. Was it in Multan? I forgot. So he would do that. So everyone did their own thing in Pakistan. To them, Pakistan was, and then I was meeting this family and people are looking at me and saying, you look like your grandmother. I look exactly like my mother, but they had not met my mother. They'd seen my dad when he was a teenager before he got married. So they didn't know who he had. So I was looking like my grandmother. All this was going on. It was just like one massive sort of churn of things. And one of the uncles, I should be saying personal stuff, one of the uncles who I met, he said, oh, I was a guest of your government. He was a prisoner of war in 71. So it was all this was going on in your head at the same time you're following cricket, It was superb. It was absolutely, it was just and all the things they told you about Pakistani hospitality, all the things were true. Sometimes they'll not let you pay for things. Sometimes they'll give you juice or something. You're standing at a counter trying to pay for whatever it is you bought in a shop. They think, India se aaye, and they'll give you something free. And you say, no, we'll pay for, no, what is this and all that, they'll give it to you. It was that just You'd walk into clothes shop and people would see that you're Indian. Because of short hair, they recognize. They said, "Are you from Karachi?" Then you said no. Then they knew you were from India. That was the thing in the north side. That's what it was.
Right.
It was incredible. I mean, I cannot even tell you. And in Lahore, in a way, after some time, the cricket didn't matter because it was so much. All of us are having so much fun. There's so much else was going on. So I think there was this was the second test in which Umar Gul, I think, cleaned us up in Lahore. Yeah. And Yuvraj had I think Yuvraj had incredible innings. Yeah. So whatever people say about Yuvraj Singh's test batting, I'll say hello. He has got centuries against Shoaib Akhtar and he has got centuries against Umar Gul and he's done very well in Nottingham. So stop saying mean things for his test record.
So many, just I must have been so many emotions going through, just experiencing the whole thing, right? As you said, it's just not on the field, but off the field, you had so much going on. And on the field, even looking from, I live in Andhra Pradesh. So when I was even watching, I remember watching the first ODI live in Karachi, just having this sense of occasion, just the crowd was there. The whole build up to the game was there. I think it was 10 Sports that was broadcasting it for us in India. The stadium was packed. It was a road of a pitch, and right from the get-go, it was just the atmosphere. You could actually see it and feel it through the television. How was tell us about some of the memories of your first ODI in Karachi. And I know you briefly touched upon you entered through the wrong access and you were found somewhere else. But how was the whole atmosphere like in the National Stadium in Karachi, the first ODI?
I think because Karachi was the first game, everything again was heightened to a degree in that sense.
Yeah.
So the crowd was also packed in. I've never been to the Karachi ground before or after that game, but it was really, it was one of the great, almost sort of city kind of cricket stadiums in the world. And when they say electric, it just felt sort of electric in that sense. And the incredible thing about that atmosphere, it wasn't ugly. It wasn't in a way hostile. There was no hostility. It was just celebration. It was just, there could have been a bit of ribbing from the crowd to the players or something like that, but it was not hostile and didn't feel uneasy at all. So what had happened, the Indians had played there a couple of years before that, the Rishikesh Connector match, and there was a bit of unease about it, but it was nothing. There was just a great welcome in that sense. And remember, this is the age before social media. Right. Yeah. So there was no formal cheering. This is the age before IPL. There was no formal sort of cheering. It was just all spontaneous. So whatever it was, it was spontaneous. And the Pakistani team itself was like absolutely wired up because this was the big thing for them. They did not want to be the team. Eventually it ended up, they lost in the sense. But they themselves are all on the line. And India versus Pakistan, nobody's kind of switches off. Everybody, it's on from the first second, it's on from the time you reach the ground. And that whole sort of press of public, of event and of occasion was what made that match just absolutely incredible. And Hemant Badani told me later, he was going for the catch. He said, when I saw Kaif coming, it's like he had something in his face that said, if I did not let him take it, he would just run over me. And I just it was Hemant Badani's catch, right? Yeah. And I was sitting next to, and we really thought Shoaib Malik had taken the game away. And then he skied the ball into the air. And I forgot the ball. And Badani said Kaif was like on that day, he was just like, he had like electricity running through his body. He wanted to be everywhere. He wanted to be in every fielding position. He said, so when I saw Kaif going for the ball, I said, boss, if I get in there, he will just finish me off and break my bones. And he said he let him go for the catch and he got it. And this is the year after, and this is a couple of years after Lords, right? And NatWest. Yeah. So Kaif's reputation had also built up and he was seen as this young Indian player and all the rest of it. And Irfan was in the team and there were two young Muslim players there. And there was all that sort of mix. I think was also there in the mix, not as ugly and as hostile and as horrible as it is now, but it was there. It was there in the backs of their minds, I'm sure, as well. So I mean, that was just it was an incredible day. I remember I was sitting at the stand and I was writing or something, and the usual thing, we are all eating too much, we're all sick and everything, and this army guy walked past and all that, and he says, are you all right? Have you got everything that you want? And I mean, this is an army fellow talking to journalists like there's some important people sitting in some stand. We are reporters. She said, no. I said, I don't know the person with the tea and all. And he said, Khatun ko chai de. So I was like, everything on the spot. The man is giving me tea. Ordering tea for me. It came on a tray with cups and saucers. Treatment. So you remember things like this. So it was great. Yeah.
It's so wonderful, like proper Mehman Nawazi and
Absolutely. Khatun ko chai de. Yeah.
So,
and we all started speaking like Pakistanis after that, So they speak Hindi in their grammar and their sentences their grammar is slightly different. So we all started talking like Pakistanis. It was ridiculous, but it was too much fun. Yeah.
And then you mentioned Kev's catch. That's one of the first memories I have when you talk about the series at all. Like my memory in general is very poor. Like I can't remember which year what happened. I can even remember events. And the first event that comes to my mind in the series is that catch. And because I was a big Kev fan. I mean, maybe I'm over-exaggerating here, but Yuvraj, Kev were one of the first real proper Indian fielders that we actually had who, bought that.
That's true. Robin Singh.
Yeah, Robin Singh too. Yes. Let's
Robin
not take
Singh
anything away from him.
No, it's Roger and Robinson. Yeah, no, but what you're saying is right. What you're saying is right. I agree.
So there were these athletic youngsters who came out and going for those runouts between runs and stuff. So it was very exciting. And then obviously that match ended. It went to the crux, right? So I think if I remember correctly, 6 runs were needed of the final ball. And was Moin Khan on strike?
Yeah, so here's what I remember, Sharda. I wish they had it on the highlights, still they don't, but I remember, so they needed 6 runs of the last ball. So obviously, everybody, I'm sure, in India remembered
we're going to lose. Yeah.
we're going to lose it. Javed Miandar, all those days of in Sharjah. Javed Miandar, he was the coach, right? He was in the dressing room. So they were showing stills of Javed and Moin Khan, and you could see Javed. By the way, I don't know if you know this, Shad, they were showing Javed the kind of gesticulating to Moin Khan.
That is what he is. He always does that. He can't stop himself. Even when he's not the captain, not the coach, he'll be doing it,
So he was gesticulating Moin Khan, saying, just come across the stumps and just, slog it over deep mid wicket. Exactly the shot he played. And it's very funnily enough, Javed got a low leg side full toss, and so did Moin Khan. But Nehra was much more faster. So Moin Khan ended up slicing the ball to the cover region. So do you remember that at all, Shardab? The last ball finish at all?
No, I don't remember the last ball finish. I just remember the KF catch, honestly. This thing that it was at. What I remember is the last 2 matches of Lahore. Where Lakshman had played those incredible games. Ganguly got stretchered off, and so you remember those things. You remember, but again, like you're saying, there's some people whose memory is really very good. Mine is not that good. If I go back to my notes, I'll find it. And because whatever I saw, I used to put it out in whatever I wrote. So it's all there. It's all because I said leave it there so that when you go back from time to time, you remember what it felt like. When you read what you write at the time.
Yeah, it is. About that catch, it is amazing to me that Kev's knee didn't just smash into Badani's face. I was looking at the replay again yesterday. It barely brushes his face. He was so close. It would have been much worse.
Yeah, that's what Badani said. I just held back because he had it on his face. He was just crazy. He was like going to go for it. And he wouldn't have cared if he would have broken my knee. He was like at that stage of sort of absolutely in awareness of where he was at and what he had to do. And Aniket, what you're saying about Yuvraj and Kev was that they were sort of the first generation of brat pack kind of players, right? So we had so everyone said New India. I started laughing because you've seen at least 5 New Indias in my career.
That's true.
Yes. Team of the 90s was New India. So and then KF and Yuvraj was New India, right? So and it was they were because of their fielding, because of the athleticism, they were a very different and because of Yuvraj's personality, they were a very different sort of a group of players. From the people that had been before, So, for example, Tendulkar, Dravid, not so much Ganguly, Tendulkar, Dravid, Lakshman, Srinath, Kumble, they were all very self-effacing, very reserved, overachievers almost, hyperachievers they were. But they were not sort of out there. Maybe everyone says they were a lot like Indians used to be. They reflected in India, which was quieter and it was more sort of sober and whatever. I don't mean sober, but quieter, generally less, not deferential as much as self-effacing in a way. And Yuvraj and Kev for the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Shadab. I think it also has to do with deducing stuff after the fact, because now that they're great players, Dravid was like this, Kumble was like this, and Tendulkar was like this. Yeah, now that I think about it, India was also like this back in the day. I think there is a lot of that as well.
No. I'll tell you why
think?
I agree with
Okay.
that, because I grew up in that time and I remember the environment also around us. And I remember it was okay for us to clap for players from another team hitting a boundary. When it was that's what it was, right? And now post 96 particularly, I think that has changed enormously, even from the cricket watching public. It's not that people are not angry. I mean, in Calcutta they're like burned stands and all that. So it's not like we were very but we were appreciative and there was a certain joy. I think maybe it's because the winning becomes a drug after some time, and then it's what you want all the time. It gives you your kick and it kind of follows on from there. But I think definitely changes the Indian cricket team in just becoming fitter and faster with younger players. It didn't have to do liberalization. It just had to do with the fact that they hired a trainer and they hired they got a fitness trainer to do fitness training. That's it. So, but those are the kind of people that came through, which was, I mean, just look at the difference between Rahul Dravid and KL Rahul, and then you'll see all the difference that there is, right? Not from the same city, they're both batsmen. Yeah. So then you'll see the change that's happened in that sense.
I wonder if Rahul Dravid has a tattoo, Sharda.
Unlikely. Highly unlikely. Yeah.
You briefly spoke about Lakshman there. He was in terrific form. I remember he was perhaps unfairly not picked for the 2003 World Cup. I'm pretty sure he was very, very disappointed about that, because he had a really good series in Australia, right? They went to Australia in the VB series and he scored all those centuries. But he was in really good nick this time around too. He got that very good century. Also, that is the one thing I remember about Lakshman, that series, is he made all these runs, but he also kept getting bowled quite a lot and also always getting startled. Always had that startled look on his face. Was it a little unfair, you think, that he was treated that way in the ODIs? Not treated as in not picked for the World Cup and so on?
Oh, it was a big thing. It was a massive, there is a story behind it, which sadly I cannot reveal at this point, but that he was really crushed. And Murli Kartik makes a joke about it, saying that both of them went back from the tour of New Zealand, knowing that they won't be playing in the World Cup. And they were like, wow. So they were, and they laughed about it in a sense. But Lakshman was absolutely crushed when that happened. And I think it sort of fractured his equation with John Wright for a while. I think then that came back to what it was, which was very good when it began because of the Australia tour in 2000. Yeah. And then it kind of resolved itself fairly later. But that decision to pick Mongia over him was just baffling. But it wasn't a decision that was made by one person alone, is all that can be said at this point. When you saw Lakshman play that innings, the appreciation of the Pakistanis for his game and of the fans for his game and what he was able to do, even though they were losing at that point, was palpable. You felt it. And what you heard from the Pakistanis, that they admired the batsmen that India came with, right? They used to call them Dravid and Ganguly, and so that's the way they sort of refer to they were their names. So after India won the series and they were leaving, there was a bus standing outside and they were clapping for the team, for the Indian team. Pakistani spectators were standing outside and clapping for them. And this was late at night, it's about well past 10:30 or something like that. Is that ever going to happen again? You don't know,
Aniket and me are a little bit of an optimist on that front. I think that'll happen. If it eventually happens, if they come to India or if we go to Pakistan, I think that's going to happen. I think per se there's a lot of, I think, genuine people outside of the social media world. At least I tend to believe it, but it remains to be seen. Aniket, sorry, go ahead. You're saying something.
No, a small anecdote. Like just 2 days back, I was traveling in Dubai, and luckily the person driving me, the cab driver, was actually a Pakistani, and we actually spoke cricket. So it was such a wonderful experience, and it always makes me believe that it's the politicians above who actually make it worse than what it actually is. If it was left to the people, the situation would be much more different than what it actually is today. So that's rather unfortunate, but hopefully things get better.
Sharda, also tell us about this was John Wright's heyday as well. I know you co-authored a book, Indian Summers, with him. How was John Wright like on this tour? How did he handle the Indian players, because it was such a big event, the whole tour itself?
I think he got the enormity of the tour immediately. He picked that up very fast. He was very good with like they said, reading the room. So when the prime ministers and all started to get involved and everything, he was like, oh, this is massive. And I think when he came to India, the first thing he noticed was the enormous popularity of the game. So when he traveled around, he said it was like everywhere you went, it was like you were the Beatles going into, the images that he had of the Beatles arriving in some airports in the 60s and whatever. And he kept telling his people, his friends back in New Zealand, like, I cannot tell you this job that I have got and what it actually means. And in Pakistan particularly, he was aware of that. And because they had come on the back of a very successful Australia tour, they had a lot of confidence going into Pakistan. But because they'd not won before, there was this little bit of friction. I mean, there's a little bit of unease as to, have you crossed that line? Can you cross that line? The World Cup victory that they had in 2003 in Centurion, that also made a difference in terms of moving the balance around a little bit. And he had a great equation with Javed Mirdad, because they played together also. And he said constantly we'd be looking at each other saying like, listen, one of us is going to end this really badly. For one of us it's going to be fantastic. For one of us it's going to be death. And they always had that sort of equation in that sense. A great respect for the players on the Pakistani side. He faced Imran and he would describe it like beautifully. And so he knew what the Pakistani sort of, what their strengths and what their weaknesses were. And at that time, India's formula to win used to be very simple. Bat once, bat big, and then any bowling attack will get anyone out in the game twice over. And I think he was very, so there was a hilarious anecdote in Lahore, right? So Yuvraj is going to be in the team. Ganguly has come back after Multan, gone to Calcutta, come back injury, no back, whatever, some saga was going on. Ganguly saga, like that, equal to pantomime. So Ganguly had come back, and we didn't, and Akash Chopra was also there. And Akash Chopra had come back from a superb series in South Africa and batting. Yes. We don't know what is going to go on, right? And who's going to open the batting? Ganguly. And so Ganguly said, at some nonsense press conference or something, Ganguly announced this thing, said, I may open the bat. Some rubbish. He just like, he dropped this rocket and I'm going to open the batting.
In Test cricket or ODIs?
In Test cricket. In the second Test match in Lahore. This is the second Test match of Lahore that he's saying this.
Wow.
And or alluded to it or gossiped about it. This is the news that came that Saurav has said he's going to open. Whether Saurav, again it came via. Okay. So then we asked John Wright, someone asked John Wright, he said, can you tell us who's going to open the batting tomorrow? So he said, yeah, definitely. It's going to be a left-hander. And then we are stuck. And eventually Yuvraj opened the batting. Something that I think Yuvraj did open the batting. Ganguly did. Because they had to play Yuvraj because he was in form. Right, they had to play him, and then because he kept getting into this kind of a jam situation, that they had to play him, and then they had to open the batting. On this absolutely monster green track that they created, they said, enough of this Multan, it's not going to work. Let's create a green track and finish them off and see what happens. And then
and it worked.
And it worked, yeah. Then they went to Rawalpindi, then Dravid batted for them 5 days and said, okay, we'll just bat them out of this game. And then there was it the one about? It was Lahore, I think he said we're going to open with the left-hander. Yeah. Then
it was the second test in Lahore, I think.
Yeah. Then we knew India was going to win in Rawalpindi on the last day. They just needed a few wickets and they dropped 6 catches in the first session. 6.
Wow.
So apparently they got the roasting of their life and they went back into the dressing room. They were just cleaned up, like roasted. Like, this is not going to happen again. Yeah, this is the thing. And everyone tells you that John Wright was a very hyper in the sense of how tense he used to get. He was a complete opposite to whatever you see on TV. He was just sitting down there, poker faced with his computer or whatever. But inside, he was in the dressing room. He was just all pins and needles and all anxiety, and that transferred itself, which he himself said. He said, I felt like I was coaching for my career in every match that I coached in with India. So it was that as well. And they were telling him, relax. And, it was so they had this whole equation between how Saurav was able to work with the younger players and John Wright was able to keep the senior players sort of fairly satisfied and sort of in a way. But that whole group of senior players was very rare in the even now you can see them together when they chat and they're on these forums and they come from books. So they have a great rapport and a great understanding. And I always try and compare that era with the current one, because that had so many stars, like genuine stars, like greats of the game were there together. But and of course they had individual problems, and this Tendulkar, that 196 and that retirement and that whole whatever declaration and everything. And despite all that, they managed to work things along, because they said, look, we have got to push the team ahead. And they had a sense of the collective. The sense of the collective was very strong. And it wasn't this, we are the greatest team in the world and everyone else is rubbish. It wasn't that kind of this thing. They were just on their way to becoming a very good team and a way to becoming a competitive team. And after we won that World Cup, after we won that series, we were in Rawalpindi. There is no flight into Pakistan from India other than Bombay to Karachi and Delhi to Lahore. Indian Airlines, Air India, whatever, flew a special flight into Rawalpindi. And all of us, including reporters, went on that flight back to Delhi. Because but the Air India people were writing boarding cards by hand, because there's nothing in the system that says that this flight is there. Yeah. The system doesn't recognize it. We had done so much of shopping. You were 10 kilos, 15 kilos overweight in the bags. No problem. India has one series. Put whatever you want and let's
good times.
Wow.
Brilliant time. Best of times. Really, really the best of times. Balaji, superstar.
I had a note on Lakshmipati Balaji there. Yeah. How was he? I remember I know his bowling exploits, so he was really good in Pakistan, but I remember his batting, Shad. He used to come out and like smash 2 sixes, 3 sixes, just like that. Almost every other game.
Yeah, he was like Shami. He was like Shami, or he was like Zahir when in a good mood. Zahir would come and either give you 0 or 6. That was Zahir's at that point, right? But he was like that. And he had got such confidence going into the thing. He had women chanting his name. Right? So Pakistan had a stand full of women, which is the women, only women go and sit in that. And the women are chanting his name, Balaji, Balaji. He went to this university sort of campus for Amrit Mahathir, who was a manager. That way he was very good with reporters, because he would give you access to players up to a particular point, and you all sit and talk and you do whatever, and then you leave and you get out and don't hassle them for the rest of the series, kind of thing. So he had done this player meeting thing in Multan, and then he took the players. He took Bala, he took Dravid, he took himself and one more player, maybe to Dinesh Monge, I'm not sure. Possibly one of the better looking ones, into this campus of this management institute in just to talk to the students, to talk to the students' body or whatever. Like packed to the gills. We went there, our camera people came, and I had all packed to the gills and screaming Balaji's name. It was just, everybody. And they were and they responded equally warmly, the players responded equally warmly. They would go out into store. I know I'm not talking about cricket, but I remember they would go out into stores and come back with bags full of those DVDs. You get very cheap, absolutely pirated DVDs in Pakistan, bags full of them. All the serials, all the movies, all whatever they had, Pakistani serials, English movies, whatever they had not seen, they would get bags full of it. Music and all the rest of it, carpets, just madness, dry fruits, anything, you just name it. It's crazy. It was just mad.
Amazing. Aniket, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was saying, I was doing something which is rather unfair, but I'll tell you what. I was actually looking at the scorecards of this test series and our current one that just concluded, right? So just to see how things are lined up, how things have changed. And it was, again, something we've spoken earlier on about this whole middle order and opening bat, right? How these guys flourish. Because the pace lineup, I wouldn't say is that time was too bad or anything, because you had, Balaji, Zahir Khan. I would say they're almost equivalent to how we have today. Irfan Pathan, who was my favorite back in those days, who would move the ball left and right. So we have a similar bowling lineup, but what stood out very clearly was how this batting lineup and having a powerful set of bowlers was the right combination to actually go by. And you can see that, when...
My dream Indian team will be this one batting and this current one bowling.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Right, exactly. Because it was...
on from that controversial topic. Tell me.
Yeah, so... No, exactly. It was basically this, right? That, and you said the sense of collective, because, not everyone is firing every game. But you could see that everyone would pitch in over the series. And that was one of the takeaways I had. And
in this team, they had a once in a generation kind of player like Tendulkar also playing his part. I keep telling people that, whatever else Tendulkar stood for or didn't stand for or talked about or didn't talk about or didn't comment on, is that he could have been a complete creep. He could have been a complete monster diva level of type of a player.
Yeah.
But he was not. He had his sort of preferences for what he wanted or whatever, where he wanted to bat and whatever, but he was not a monster. In this team, you had it like he could have been an absolute monster. Imagine his level of talent and his level of achievement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, you briefly spoke about the new India came up. So I was telling, when in the first test when Dravid declared with Tendulkar stranded at 194, clearly he was upset. Apparently he writes in the autobiography that he was upset and he had to go chat with Rahul and they kind of smoothed things over. And he also talks about this anecdote where actually Sanjay Manjrekar on the commentary says once Dravid declares, he goes, I think Robin Jackman was with him. So he goes, Robin, I think this is the sign of a new India. This is what new India is. They are not for milestones and all of that stuff. So apparently Sachin, Manjrekar apparently spoke to Sachin on that night or something in the hotel, and he talks about how Tendulkar was miffed about it because what even knew, and I was upset that he could have waited 6 more runs. So he just shared that anecdote. It was very funny. Did you?
So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a question just following this up. So I was unaware of. I mean, I knew this happened, but was it intentional or was Dravid not aware of what was happening, or was it a calculated move? I'm still not completely sure what.
How would I give you an answer to that? As in, only Dravid will be able to class. When he writes his book, which he says he's not going to write, right? But the thing is that he eventually, what ended up, as someone said, we kept telling Ramesh Pawar, no, to go out. We kept telling him to say, hurry up. You have to do it. And so we don't know whether Ramesh Pawar actually passed on the message. That is what we don't know. We know everything else. We know what Dravid said. We know what Tendulkar said. We don't know what Ramesh Pawar said, right? I don't
Fellow Marathi, Sharda.
Huh?
Fellow Mumbaiker.
Exactly. So we don't know what he said to him. That he's going to tell that hurry up. Is he going to tell Tendulkar to hurry up? Whatever. Right. So this thing is going on, and eventually the match ended well in time for many hours in the last day for there to have been time to declare. Right. So, but the declaration came with the complete intent of hurrying things up and making sure. And also you will understand that this was a test match in Pakistan after many, many years, and he was playing a test match. They were in a very good position. Yeah. So there is that kind of anxiety. Plus Ganguly is going to toodle off to Calcutta. He's hanging around in the dressing room. He's going to toodle off to Calcutta. And there's all this stuff that's also going on, right? And both Ganguly and Dravid at that time are personalities in themselves. They're achievers in themselves. Dravid is seen as the more accomplished batsman of the two. Ganguly is the more accomplished captain. He's got all these young kids behind him, Harbhajan and all these other fellows behind him. And the thing about his captaincy was that Ganguly made himself accessible to even the youngest player. Even the youngest player could tick him off in public and he would listen to it and he would laugh. That was the thing, which you don't know could have happened with any of the others, right? Other than Lakshman, for example, I don't think it would have happened with any of the others. So there is all this sort of thing going on. So why he declared, that is an eternal mystery. It will go on forever.
Yeah. He's definitely going to write a book, Sharda, I'm pretty sure. But I don't think he's going to write a tell-all, though.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think he's very fond of books. I'll be surprised if he doesn't write a book some years down the line. We'll see. The other thing, so you missed the Sehwag triple century.
I missed the triple century. I was watching it and I was so angry with The Office.
Yeah.
I was always angry with The Office. I said, come on. It said, yeah, but they won the one-day series. I said, what? And then, of course, I had to write a story and make phone calls and try and write about Sehwag's triple hundreds in 3
man.
Whatever they want. Yeah. So very frustrating. But then they sent me off to Lahore. And the Indian team used to, not the Indian team, people around the Indian team used to joke, every time you come, we lose. You go away and then you come and we lose. Every time you land up, we lose. So I remember I went to after NatWest, I went to see Lord's test for one test to do I can't remember what. And I went back, they pulled me out after Lord's because he lost. So I didn't see the other two wins. I didn't see Headingley. I didn't see how they drew at Nottingham with Parthiv.
Man.
So they kept doing this. And every time we would go, we would lose. So when I reached Lahore, I said, "Oh God, they've lost it." I reached Melbourne, right, in 2003, the Australia series. I reached on the morning after Lakshman and I think Sehwag were batting, and they got out, and again we lost over there. And then I was like, "Oh, Padmati, they just stop coming everywhere."
So wait, that 2003 series in Melbourne, that was Sehwag's 185, right?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you watch that?
No, I didn't see it because I reached the day.
Oh,
I
no.
reached the day after. They sent me there on the plane after we had won in Adelaide. I said, "Listen, I have to go. I'm telling you, the series was going to be important." What they used to make you do is that they used to make you write briefs and say, "What story will you file?" I said, "Are how can I file a story until I don't know what happens?"
Oh,
But they did not want it to go because they thought people are just going to do Madagashti and have fun over there, on these tours. So I ended up going, and then Sydney we went to, and then we saw Tendulkar's Great 100 and Lakshman, But it's just mad.
Wow. But that Sehwag's innings, by the way, what an innings to watch live on TV. That is just, he got 309. It was the
You remember the first session? They made some 25 runs in the first hour of play. They made nothing, some 9 or 6 or something. Just check the score, no, Aniket, you'll find out. The first session of that Sehwag 100, you should see how quickly he went to the after lunch. First session, he and Chopra were just, oh God, they were just like, they had just dug a grave there and said, "We are going to stay dead here, you can't do anything."
And of course, with Sehwag, he ended up with a strike rate of 82, which was second fastest triple ton.
Yeah. Second fastest triple century at the time. Sharda, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, I'm saying Sehwag's overall, as far as openers go, Sehwag, I think, has the highest strike rate for an opener other than Adam Gilchrist. It's a mad, Sehwag's strike rate as an opener is mad. After he quit also, it's crazy.
I have the scorecard in front of me. I'm just not able to find a session by session breakdown. So
I have this though. Yeah, but once Sehwag got going though, Sharda, India were 142 when Sehwag got his 100. India were 296 when he got his double.
So the first hour I remember being very slow at drinks.
Yeah. And then post lunch Sehwag went just berserk. Yeah, it is just berserk.
He got his century in Multan with a 6, got his triple with a 6. I still couldn't believe it when I saw he has this absolute hate for off spinners. So whenever he sees off spinners, he just goes after them with like visceral hate, I think. But he's just Saqlain Mushtaq.
Yeah, no, he didn't care. He doesn't care for bowlers.
Yeah.
He said, "I look at the ball. I'm saying, can I get a hit? Can I hit a 4? Can I hit a 6?" And apparently, I can't remember whose innings he was watching. Whether it was in Sydney where he was watching Tendulkar play, or was it somebody else? And he'd be sitting. Ganguly told the story to somewhere. He said he'd be sitting next to him. "Arey chauka gaya. Arey chauka." And the guy batting perfectly decent, proper test match batting he's doing. And I think to Tendulkar or somebody said, "Oh, he's missed out on the 4. Oh, he's missed out." Hello.
It was probably Tendulkar's Sydney innings when he got the double century. He kept leaving all those outside the off stump.
I think oh, chauka gaya.
Such a treat to watch.
Even his wicket on 309, I mean, I believe this is an opinion, but Sehwag was one of the only people who would actually be fed up of batting and get out. Like, you could see he would do these really silly things, you would be like, yeah, exactly. But from body language, the way he got out on 309, it seemed like, bas, bahut hua, let's go back home. Yeah. So,
and in Melbourne, how he got out to Salmon Cattage? What is this? Who are you getting out to? Yeah,
you live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm sure.
Die by some proper sword, not by.
And what's worse, I remember Simon Catich. He bowled the same ball. He hit him for a 6, and then he hit and mistimes it again. The same thing. Just unbelievable. But I'm sure Ian Chappell loved every bit of it. Ian Chappell just loves Sehwag. He just swears by Sehwag. But you briefly spoke about Yuvraj Singh's maiden test century. Were you able to talk to him after he made his century at all, Sharda?
No, not specifically on the day after his century. Okay. I got to know him much better, much later on, around the time of his book. And I'd say a couple of years before the 2011 World Cup. I remember I spoke to him after 2002 after NatWest on the phone, and I said, "Okay, so what's it like with the trainer and what's it like?" And he said, "Sweets band kara di hai." It is Yuvraj Singh, complete disgruntled voice. He can't eat sweets anymore. Sweets band kara di hai. Yeah, I remember.
Also, how are the press conferences like, Sharda? Just before the games, after each day's play, how was
Inzi was the best because Inzi people used to, Pakistani reporters have no deference to anything. We'll a little bit, we'll have some little manners and whatever. So Inzi at a press conference, they said, tickets are not selling. He said, I cannot stand here. Bahar khade hoke ticket to nahi bech sakta hu na. I can't stand outside the ground and sell tickets. I think test match tickets were not selling because the test match crowds are not that big. One day,
Right.
So Inzi kept doing these things. Then someone asked him about match fixing. Someone asked Dravid about match fixing, and he said, "Can someone get this man out of the room?" So he was like really angry. Can someone please get this person out of the room? And Inzi was Inzi was just like sailing along. Like, Inzi didn't get affected by anything, even defeat. The most incredible thing I remember is in Lahore. Why was Imran Khan getting? Oh no, in Rawalpindi, Imran Khan was, I don't know, he was doing commentary or what he was around. He was hovering in the general area. And everyone heard him saying, Zillat ho gayi and all. That means like full humiliation has happened, that we're losing to India and all that. So that was like a big moment of triumph for the Indians that Imran Khan is angry. Something happened in Lahore, and the press box was too, like, if you stand outside the press box, you're next to the match referee's room. And we saw John Wright marching with complete fury to the match referee's room, complete and utter rage. And we all like, put ourselves up against the wall because we didn't want to because he used to lose his temper, he used to really lose his temper. So we don't know what the discussion was about. So he said, and he and Ganguly were constantly going to match referee rooms because Ganguly was either slow on overrate or something had happened, and constantly he was going there. So I think this is Ranjan or somebody. So when he came out, they asked Ranjan what had happened. He said, no, he came for tea. For tea or something else. He didn't know what it was. But and the cricket was played in good spirit. There wasn't any ugliness that was there, which you remember.
Yeah.
Because I think they were particularly much more careful, about how they were going to conduct themselves. And I remember before the first test or one day series, I think it was the test, Irfan was talking to Amrit Mathur, who was the media manager. He said, they said, we want to interview Irfan because of Irfan is star and whatever. So, Irfan knew they were going to ask him, what is it like to be a Muslim? He knew and he prepared his answer and he said, I'm going to do this. So Amrit said, okay. Then he came out, he said, I said this. Is it okay? So he said, yeah, it's absolutely fine. Because he knew that was coming. He knew that was happening all the time. So there's also this undercurrent, but it was not vicious or mean or anything of that. It wasn't, it was just reporters being reporters, Why would you not ask that question, for example? Yeah.
Sorry, Aniket, go ahead. Sorry, you were saying.
No, I wanted to pull on that thread you spoke about Inzi Bhai, because his series was also pretty interesting, at least from the Pakistani front. He had like 2 centuries in the ODIs, and then he had, I think, a couple in the Test series also. So he and then obviously
there was no one around him. There was, I think there was that one young batsman who played.
Yasir Hamid.
Yeah. But there was no one else around him. So he didn't have this bulk of runs like the Indians always had somebody for somebody. There's always partnership. Right. Like someone playing a big innings and all partnerships around him. Someone batting, someone coming through and all partnerships around him. So that's what Inzi was almost like lost, in that sense. So it was like a classic India versus Pakistan battle of their bowling versus India's batting. That kind of thing. And that, but India's bowling was sharp enough to sort of dent their batting and to make sure they didn't make enough runs in the face of those,
Yeah.
Right. And one of the typical cliches was Inzi was also involved in a run out as always. So
that is
yeah. No. It was lovely because you got a chance to see and hear all the sort of internal almost, let's say, the stream sort of flowing through both of the cricketing countries, particularly the Pakistan one as well. And they could see that the Indians were pulling away from them, right? They could see that was happening. Yeah. So when they came back in 2005, they came back and they won the series in Bangalore. They won the test in Bangalore. The Indians were so upset they didn't come out of the room for 2 days. They were like just so angry. They were so upset that they batted badly and whatever. And also they knew that the Indians were sort of pulling away. And the equation in that rivalry was going to change, which it changed considerably until the match at the T20 World Cup. And I will always traumatize Osman Samiuddin by this, that we started playing a lot of matches against each other, right? We played successively tournaments. And Osman said at one point, enough of this dosti series. Yeah, too much you're playing each other. And then it stopped. And
literally
I said,
stopped. Yeah.
It's literally stopped. I said, you don't ever say this for India and Pakistan because anything can happen. So the more we play, the better it is. It becomes healthier. It becomes more normal.
Yeah, that Bangalore test, Shad, I remember we were, India were in a winning position right on the first day. They were 5 down, and Kamran Akmal, I think, scored that century in Bangalore, if I remember correctly.
And Kamran Akmal had gone and scored he saved the match in Chandigarh, in Mohali, the first test match.
Yeah. So, what are the scenes like? It was different time for gaining access. I'm sure you had better access than now with players and all of that. What are the scenes like after India won the Test series? I know you said you went back on the same flight as the players, but even before that, when in Rawalpindi, what were the celebrations like?
It was quite a empty stadium in that sense, and by the fifth morning, you knew they were going to win until they started dropping catches, but you knew they were going to win. And they had a lovely they had 2 dressing rooms next to each other, and there was a balcony separating them. And so you are standing on the ground when the players are coming, the Indian players are coming down, and they were either throwing shots or something to each other. The Indians were throwing to the Pakistanis or vice versa. It was like that. It had ended well. There'd been no security problem. There'd been no sort of lapse of any kind. And the excitement, there was just a lot of relief because the Indians felt that they were the better team going into the event, and they were able to prove it. So they came down. This is what reporters the younger reporters, they can't believe when you tell them these things. So they came down the stairs. We are all standing there. We can see what's happening. We can see what's going on. Sehwag and John Wright had a bit of a bust up in England during the 2002 series because of Sehwag getting out on Sehwagian way. But he still had a very good equation with him, and he went. So John Wright's habit used to be that I'm not going to come into the front of the photographs. It's when you win, it's the team wins. I'm just the coach or whatever. So he just literally grabbed him and brought him down along with the team photograph as well. So there was that sort of little picture you remember. And it was a big achievement for all of them. It was the first Indian victory in Pakistan in so many years.
They didn't even win a test in Pakistan before this series.
Yeah. So they would draw stuff. And so when Manjrekar's debut was just draws, but it was like, yes, we had like hung in there and, the 89 series. And so it was a big thing, but there was no champagne to be had immediately. Maybe there was in the evening. I can't remember whether there was because
I think there was champagne in the dressing room, Sharda.
Might have been. Yeah. Actually, might have been. Yeah, they might have had special crates brought in for something like that. I think that was the story we got to hear later. That there was champagne, and it was not a big drinking team. Like it was not a massive drinking team, but there was. It was the younger guys were better rated than the older ones. But it was, and I remember that the next morning is the time when they were leaving. And they had the flight, and I remember Lakshman. I interviewed Lakshman the next morning in the hotel, and I'm thinking about this and saying it's not going to happen to anybody again. It's not the way the world is, And all of us, literally after every match, you just flood the hotel and hang around in the lobby and wait to chat to players, and it was a normal thing to do. And even though there was like heavy security and all of it, it was just it was just the most natural thing to do because almost it was like the reporters were treated as part of the entourage that was traveling. They were nuisances, but they were there. They had to be dealt with, and it was this thing, and that's how you went along with it. And Pakistan was particularly, it felt particularly like a closer and a tighter knit because the series was so huge. I remember the first press conference that happened in Karachi. I think that place must have been. It was a huge one of those banquet halls or something like that. It was massive and it was just full. It was just full of people, and they had a podium and the Indians were up there and Ganguly and all that. They were up there answering questions. It was incredible. So they had, Amrit was the media manager, Amrit Mathur, and Professor Shetty was the administrative manager there. And just the two perfect people to work in a series that is so tight and tense because everyone knew Professor Shetty. Everybody knew Amrit because he'd been at Pilcom in 96. So people in Pakistan knew him. We would go to I remember in my first evening in Lahore, I went to the stadium to get my accreditation, and they would sit down. They'll be like, yes, it's there. You have tea. You sit down. You discuss the CEO, and you are chatting like it's a normal thing to happen. So all these strange kind of things that were there. It was a superb series. It was just a wonderful series because of all these things that it felt like a collective project for everybody, everyone that was there, both the players, us, Pakistani reporters, all of that. We had a lot of friends. We made friends with taxi drivers. All our SIM cards that we got, in Pakistan when we went. We just gave them to our cabbies with whom we used to, and normally they say you should not be giving, you should have ID and this and nothing, which all our cabs. So the next time people went on the next tour, they just called up the same taxi driver and they hooked up again with those same people that they'd seen, We carried fruit from here, we carried back cloth from there, all kinds of, we carried oranges because you don't get oranges in Pakistan. You get another different type of citrus fruit called Malta. So you get that. So Pakistanis haven't eaten oranges in a while. So I carried oranges, you carry mithai, you carry back all kinds of things. Mad. It was a great trip.
So I wanted to pull on a thread Gautam briefly spoke about, that turns out to be Axis back in the day and today, right? So, and even if you go back to earlier when there was no TV, right? So folks used to read reports about matches. So you can see clearly what the job of a journalist is back in those times, right? Like you've got to let the reader understand what actually happened on the ground. And then came this saga in 2000s where you could have limited access, but there was no social media. And in today's world, the player says what he wants to directly via social media or however they prefer their mode of communication. So how is the role of journalism, because you've sustained this complete cycle, right? And what is your thoughts on how journalism has changed or evolved during these years, and what you see is different and better or for the worse?
Yeah, I think a lot of that in the earlier journalism, sort of say, let's say 70s, 80s, there were very few journalists, so they were all very, very close to the players. So you had people, hanging around in dressing rooms after matches, all men, so drinking, chatting, all that kind of thing that was there. When I came into the profession, it was not formalized into media training and media managers as yet. It was just free for all, right? You just, whatever you spoke, whoever you spoke to was your chance. And you then described the day as it went. But at the same time, you had to try and get the backdrop of what was happening, because there's all this captaincy tussles and rivalries and whatever you have to see. And then television came in. Television brought in automatically a lot of women there. So people are used to having women around in a cricket thing, which is fabulous, which is great. And television people had no shame. They would just bang on windows or the team bus and hold mic and all that, which was fabulous for me, actually. I really enjoyed it. Television then brought the fact that you needed to have a little gatekeeper over there. So you had a media manager and press conferences were controlled and all kinds of things that were there. But still at the same time, it was fairly informal. You could still be able to have a chat on the sidelines, at any point. You would be able to call players up in their rooms and chat with them. It wasn't an issue. Even this is before mobile phones. I remember because I was in, which tour was this? This must have been when Lakshman started scoring hundreds in the CB series in Australia.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, correct. And that's Rohit Sharma's debut. Correct. That's 2008. No, I'm talking about earlier. Sorry. I'm talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So when I came back after Sydney and they had CB series or whatever the tri-series was, he started scoring hundreds. Office wanted article, and I was able to call Tendulkar in Sydney and get quotes from him about Lakshman. It was just awesome. So there was that, and then now you had the Dhoni, the Ganguly era was all sensation and gossip and this and that and the other. So you could report cricket whichever way you wanted. You could speak cricket in any language. You could speak it in the language of the tabloid. You could speak it in the language of the broadsheet newspaper, in the language of Wisden Almanac if you wanted to, or you could speak it like whatever else. Ganguly. Dhoni's captaincy that came, then there was Chappell and there was Dravid. Chappell, I think, reached out to a lot of journalists in ways that were slightly, shall we say, careless. Was almost trying to control the narrative in a way, but it didn't work out and ended however it ended. And Dhoni then said, I'm not going to talk to reporters anymore. And I'm not going to have any equation to reporters other than the press conference. So, and Kohli followed on from that stream, and reporters are scum and whatever, it became like that. And it followed, because all reporters are bad kind of thing. And it followed on from then. Kohli's given interviews. He gave an interview to Nagaraj at Cricket for a long time ago. Then he gave one and then he only spoke to foreign media, which annoys me enormously. But now it doesn't annoy me because I'm not working for anybody. I'm not
It's safe for Dhoni too, Shadi. I think he gave one to Mark Nicholas, if I remember correctly. That was the
I'm
only thing I
glad you have
remember.
pointed it out and not me. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it was that. So there was this lack of access, and then you have social media, and the player speaks, which is great. That the player can speak to the fan and they can tell them what they want. But like, for example, those Ashwin's Kuti tales, no, what is it called? The
Kuti stories.
Yeah.
Kuti stories. Kuti stories that came from Australia was super. But what happens when the team loses?
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly my point. You never see when India loses, he never puts a vlog out there.
Kuti stories are going to come. So there is something that that is there. That is the role of the press, and it's been. But at the same time, younger reporters tell me it's much easier that we don't have to chase up all this Ganguly's gossip going from here to there or something going from here to there. And we just write what we feel. But what happens then is if your organization wants you to invite Virat Kohli to attend their annual, which pre-COVID days, they used to have these big conferences and meetings and conclaves and summits and all that. Then Kohli is not going to come because I have taken his trip in the newspaper magazine.
Yeah.
So then you have to make up your mind. So newspapers and magazines and all, they want you to be blunt, they want you to be forthright, but they also want you to get the interview. No, it's not happening. It doesn't work like that. But I think younger reporters recognize that, and now the interview is usually generated via commercial or some media parallel, kind of brand manufacture, brand endorsement kind of a thing.
On the sidelines of a commercial.
On the sidelines of a commercial shoot, and the IPL teams, it works better for the non-star type of players. In an IPL, it works much better. So it's a very tough time because there's a lot about the current generation of players that you will not get to know. I mean, I'm coming back to Rohit Sharma, is that you want a really deep, thoughtful, revealing interview with Rohit Sharma. Revealing, not scandal, but just talking about himself and what it's like and what his life has been like as a player from 2008 to the successor to Tendulkar, which is what Ian Chappell called him, to at this point in time. So you would want that to be told, but maybe our sport has now become so big. It's like become like NBA or football, that you don't really know what the superstar thinks because we're just churning out and giving you copy after copy after copy and match report after match report. Maybe that's the way the future will be. But I was just happy that I traveled when I was younger, in a younger and different time.
That being said, Shad, again, can't thank you enough for being so generous with us with your time.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. It was like sitting in front of you, and COVID's not allowing that, but it's good to talk. It's good to talk with fans and friends and cricket fans and journalists and good to talk in News Laundry.
Hope you guys enjoyed that wonderful conversation with Sharda Agra that we had. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because for us it was just equally thrilling. But I would remiss if you don't plug News Laundry again. So please, guys, if you are not a subscriber to News Laundry, please head on to newslaundry.com and hit that subscribe button.
And pay to keep news free.
So please head on to News Laundry and hit that subscribe button.
You can write to us at NL Playoffs with suggestions, comments, and also information, because we are looking, and as we've spoken about it a couple of times, this podcast is about the whole sporting ecosystem in India. So if you are a part of this ecosystem, you contribute to it in any form, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to let the world know of how they can contribute as well. So me and Gautam are always excited to learn from you. And with that being said, we'd like to thank our producer, as always, Jude, who makes this happen.
And also thanks to producer Brian, who originally recorded the episode with us. We hope you enjoyed it again. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, have a wonderful day and have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody. Thank you, Aniket.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.